Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of the Repositioning Expert, coming to you live with Tuesday Tea Time with Chala on another Tuesday. And I am having my protein. And we are talking about something so controversial today. I mean, as controversial as cold calling can get. I'm not a huge fan of cold calling. I've done this topic before, I've talked about it before, but I wanted to take a look at what are some of the statistics in 2024. I've done cold calling. That was my first jobs ever when I was 15, when I was Logan's age. And I sold everything from pens to graves, like cemetery properties, believe it or not, and funeral services. So I've sold some of the hardest things cold calling. At the time, they used to just give us a phone book. We didn't have sophisticated lists of anything. I'm sure there's still companies that still do that. And we were calling consumers. We weren't even calling businesses. So things have really only gotten harder and yet easier because there's so many more tools than just the phone. So I'm going to talk to you today about the fact that cold calling is very much alive. And the companies that say that they're dead experience 42% less growth than those that said it was alive. So this is in a recent study. So I'm going to share with you some of the stats that came out in 2024. So only 2% of cold calls result in an appointment. I want you to think of this when you're budgeting time, budgeting money for whoever is going to be calling, or if it's going to be you. If you're looking at how many names you have to call, and obviously this varies according to who you're calling and the industry and the level. And in fact, I was just reading about a company that was just formed and sold for $20 million about how it was a CRM list of how to get in touch with CEOs. Like it's obviously for the people that you can get in touch with much easier is only 2%. Imagine what it's like for CEOs. And we have a whole program called ABM, which is account-based marketing, which is like a very long and expensive way to get in touch with trying to get in the door with CEOs of large corporations. And that's a whole other series. I've actually talked about that a lot here, but we're just talking about regular, like non-C-suite calls that you're making. And only 2 of those result in an appointment. Imagine that. 74% of companies don't leave voicemails because they don't think it works. And in 2007, it took 3.68, so almost 4 cold call attempts to reach a prospect. Today, it takes twice as long, 8. So, and I'm going to give you some tips around, the multi-attempt tip. I'm going to give you some of that. So first, let me just scare you with all this horrible stats. By making a few more call attempts, sales reps can boost conversion rates by up to 70%. And by a few, they mean it takes an average of 18 calls to actually connect with a buyer. That's insane. I'm also going to give you tips on how to shorten that, and then what to do on those 18 attempts, and hopefully much less attempts. 42% of sales reps feel they don't have enough information before making a call, and I say that's on them. Of course, they need to get the volume out, and they need to also do the research. And when I hire people to do research for me, I just hired a company to do outreach for me for speaking gigs. So that's going to be mostly research. So like the better the research, the more time you spend on research, because like 42%, almost half, don't even think they have enough information. And then 85% of prospects and customers are dissatisfied with their on the phone experience. Why do you think? It's because they don't have enough knowledge, and they're all saying the same thing. So I have a whole bunch of tips for you not to sound the same and what to say when you are calling. And then for those that do leave voicemails, 15% of their time, sales reps say they spend about 15% of their time leaving voicemails, nothing else. But then remember how many they said they don't even leave voicemails. 74% don't even leave voicemails. And then when leaving a voicemail for a prospect, the optimal length is between 8 and 14 seconds. So I'm going to give you an example of what you could say during the 14 seconds. And then 44% of salespeople give up after one follow-up call. And like the stat that I know is it takes 7 times. So I don't know what that stat's been upgraded to in 2024, but I guarantee it could be double that, right? It's like that seems to be the trend. It's just there's just too many people calling, too much happening. And despite what you might think, a lot of people are still cold calling. And then they're saying that the best time to cold call is between 4 and 5. In my experience, it's all off work hours. So before 8:30, before 9, and then after like 4:30 is always the time where things have quieted down. And the senior executives are still in the office. They're still busy. They're just catching up on their work because they've been busy with meetings and with their direct reports. And now this is the time where you can actually reach them. Okay. So here's my voicemail tip. I wanted to give you what you can do in the 8 to 14 seconds. And this is one that we leave, that I've left, that my team leaves. And one of the ways that we, first of all, we don't do cold calling anymore. I mean, we do calling, but we make sure that we warm it up in some way. And there are lots of ways to warm it up. And some of them are, let me just, the warm up ways are a name drop. If you know someone that, you've met them through, or that, you were introduced or mentioned, association or organization mention, which I will show you in my demo, a common friend that you have, how and where you met, potentially, where you saw or found them is a good one. So they don't feel like you're just like a number to them. And what is the relevance, i.e., you tell them you specialize in their industry, or you specialize in their, pain. So one of those things, you have to give them relevance. So you're warming up the call so that they don't immediately delete or hang up on you. And I do that. Like if there's no relevance, if they're just like, I have no time because I've got other messages, and I just, delete it. Okay. So here's my, voicemail sample is I would call, let's say, Janice. Hey, Janice, we met at the X event in March. So this would have been the WeBank event in March. This is Chala. I'm calling to see if you'd want to attend a private executive roundtable that I'm holding around the topic of landing corporate contracts through your WBE certification. So it is a very specific group, very specific pain point. I get clients like this all the time. This is what we do. So this is my voicemail tip that you could do for the 14 seconds. And you would end it with a call to action by saying, I'm going to be sending you an email about this. Look for the email about this, where you could give them more information. And there's, links to click for getting on the phone with you, or checking out the information for the registration page, which you won't have time in the 14 seconds on the phone to say. So here is the tip that I wanted to give you, because in 2007, it used to take 3.68 cold call attempts to reach a prospect. And today it takes 8 attempts, which is like more than half. So here's what I recommend that you do is that multiple pronged approach. I want you to leave a voicemail on every kind of social that they are participating in. So for example, you can leave a voice note in LinkedIn now on their contact. You can, once you establish contact with them and they become a connection, you can literally leave a voice note. You can leave a voice note through email. You can leave a video through Loom, through their email. You can take that Loom, which is like a free online platform, to record your video on the cloud instead of storing it or recording it through uploading it to Vimeo or YouTube. You don't have to. It's just a direct link straight of your video, a very short video of what you would say, exactly what script that I just wrote for you. So what I'm trying to say is, don't just keep leaving voicemail. Try different multi-pronged approaches. And now through social media, whatever social media they use, of course, for B2B, it's mostly going to be LinkedIn, but look at all the other ones that they use as well. If they're very active on Twitter, if they're very active on, Facebook, and it's all public, pursue them and leave them a voice note. Okay. Now, what do you say in your voicemail? What do you say in your voicemail? Just like what I told you, if you're trying to continually meet with them to get them to talk about your services, that is not what I want you to do. That is not the training that I give. That's not what I teach. That's when they're going to hang up on you. That's what happens to me all the time, where they don't hang up on me, but that's what people try to do to me, is they're constantly trying to sell to me. That's not what I want you to use cold calling for. I want you to use cold calling for to get a piece of value around their pain, some form of education, some form of something that's going to help them. So here are some things that you could tell them you're sending them on your voicemail, or on whenever you cold call and reach a live person. You can say, I'm sending you, but it has to be very specific around their pain point, and it has to be a very specific targeted industry and a one facet of their pain point. So let's say if the pain point is employee retention, then, for example, one of my clients, what we produced is a tip sheet on why they're losing their employees to burnout due to adult elderly care, children burning out while they're taking care of mom and dad and burning the candle at both ends at work. So that is a very specific pain point that she has positioned herself into, that she would then invite to view or read or watch or whatever it is, some form of information about that pain. So here's what you can say on when you're cold calling and you're leaving a voicemail is, I'm sending you a trends report about this, a lookbook, an infographic, a white paper, a tip sheet, a video, a whiteboard video, a presentation, a webinar. These are all things that you could be sending them. It has to be of value to solve their pain around your niche that you've niched in. You can invite them. So this cold call could also be to invite them to a speech, a private small group gathering that you're curating, a roundtable, executive roundtable, a training, a discussion group, a meet and greet, a party, a product or service demo. And mostly what I like to invite them to is in small groups, because important people meet in small rooms. And it has to be led by you, or sponsored by you, or taught by you, or organized by you, or curated by you. Somehow, some way, you have to look like you have a stake in the game and that you've organized this. And it puts less pressure on the executives if there's a group of executives, so that they know they're not going to be targeted for one-on-one sales. They are going to know that this is what it actually looks like, which is a more like an education. Now, everybody knows what these are. Everybody knows there's a sales pitch at the end. Nobody's doing education for the hell of it, but it's a long-term game, and everybody knows that, and everybody plays it. So you have to get into that long-term game, and you have to use cold calling to start to populate the different stages of getting to know your prospects and getting to build a whole network of them. In fact, that's how I built my entire business in the US, is by telling people to come in and inviting them into these curated small groups of executives who met in small rooms of executive roundtables. And that's how I grew my whole business. So remember, always warm up the call, always have something of value. Don't talk about yourself. This is not about you. Hey, I'm calling to let you know about my services and about our products. And hey, did you know about this? Unless you're like the Swiffer of your industry and nobody's ever heard of an amazing solution like that, and nobody has a solution like that, I really urge you to make it about them and not about you. And I urge you to do the research about that industry and become an industry expert, so that you don't have to do heavy lifting every time you call a prospect, because you have already done the work. You are an expert in that one specific pain. You know all their pain language. You have already collateral and presentations and things you can send them on hand to be able to entice them into a conversation together. Cold calling will always be dead if you're not using it properly. But the point of this is, yes, people still have phones, and yes, people still answer them, and yes, people still have phone conversations about business with people they've never met, or they've met, sporadically, or, they know very lightly, but that they're willing to talk further about. I myself would love to get calls about resources that I haven't tapped into or and didn't know about around a topic of interest. So, what was the topic of interest? For me, it was getting on more stages in front of owner operators of a certain industry type and size. And when somebody in my network heard that I had this pain, they introduced me to the person who I hired and the company that I hired. That's what I want for you, is for you to be a resource for people and use cold calling for that exact science of getting in front of the right people to help them with the right thing. And that's what all of what sales is, isn't it? It's to get in front of the right people and tell them how you can help specifically, and then become part of their resource and network of resources and supply and help. I hope that makes sense. Cold calling isn't dead. And I will see you next Tuesday. All the best.